Popular rapper arrested. He's accused of shooting a security guard at a South Florida gentleman's club and will remain behind bars. A judge denied bond for 21-year-old Lontrell Williams.
A popular rapper was arrested, accused of shooting a security guard at a South Florida gentleman's club, and ordered to remain behind bars. A judge denied bond for 21-year-old Lontrell Williams. Almost immediately, the internet reacted. Rumors spread that Pooh Shiesty's house had been raided and that Pooh Shiesty was back in custody. Screenshots pulled from federal databases, indistinct video fragments, and half-captured live-stream audio collided across social media, triggering a wave of confusion that moved faster than verification. Posts claimed law enforcement had arrived, seized property, and determined that release terms had been violated. Memphis pages amplified the claims. Blogs repeated them. Within hours, a version of events hardened into certainty online. According to sources connected to the situation, the panic began when Pooh Shiesty's name appeared under RRM Dallas. To anyone scrolling quickly, the listing looked indistinguishable from an arrest. Headlines compounded the effect, leaning on phrases like "back in custody" and "feds move fast," language that implied finality where none had been established. Timing intensified the reaction. Pooh Shiesty had only recently regained momentum after stepping out earlier than expected, and whenever momentum builds around an artist with a past, attention sharpens. Sources note that federal supervision records do not update cleanly for public viewing, and that halfway house placement or home confinement can resemble incarceration when misread. Even so, the rumor cycle accelerated. Claims circulated that officers had gone to Pooh Shiesty's residence searching for violations tied to unauthorized contact and property concerns. Some posts alleged weapons were found, despite the absence of any official report. Memphis fans moved from celebrating Pooh Shiesty's return to mourning another setback in a matter of hours. Given Pooh Shiesty's legal history, the story felt plausible to many. This is how misinformation becomes accepted fact, through speed, repetition, and a name heavy enough to carry belief on its own. By the time clarification began to surface, the damage had already settled. Screenshots arrive without context, and the internet does not wait for paperwork. What began as a database misreading evolved into a scandal narrative that dominated feeds through the night. Context explains why the rumor ignited so quickly. Pooh Shiesty returned home in October 2025, released early after serving more than 3 years of a 63-month federal sentence connected to a firearm conspiracy case that once reverberated through Memphis rap. The release was not a clean break. Sources say Pooh Shiesty remained under strict home confinement and supervised release, monitored through federal re-entry management until April 2026. Curfews, travel limits, approved addresses, restricted visitors, every condition reduced the margin for error. When Pooh Shiesty's name surfaced again in federal systems, the assumption of collapse followed immediately, especially as reports suggested a return to custody. In the space between what appeared on a screen and what had actually changed, perception overtook fact, and the consequences unfolded in real time. What unfolded behind the scenes was quieter, more procedural, but no less serious. According to industry sources, Pooh Shiesty's legal status did not change. Pooh Shiesty was not rearrested. No new charges were filed. There were no booking photographs, no arrest logs, no official records indicating a return to custody. Yet in an ecosystem driven by velocity rather than verification, absence of evidence carried little weight. The confusion traced back to RRM Dallas, an administrative system responsible for managing supervised release and halfway house placements, not federal incarceration. The distinction is technical, easily misunderstood, and poorly translated for public view. Fragmented audio clips circulated, voices insisting addresses were correct, claims of residents repeated in frustration, moments stripped of context and repurposed as proof. The system itself does not clearly differentiate between forms of confinement, and that ambiguity became fertile ground for viral misinterpretation. When Pooh Shiesty's name entered that space, disorder followed. The timing intensified everything. Pooh Shiesty had just released FDO, First Day Out, a record that surged immediately, climbing charts and reinforcing a carefully measured return. Rapid success often invites scrutiny, an unspoken expectation that momentum must be interrupted. According to sources, law enforcement did not raid Pooh Shiesty's home, did not seize property, and did not revoke Pooh Shiesty's release. But by the time those clarifications circulated, the rumor had already hardened into accepted truth in certain corners of the internet. In hip-hop culture, perception frequently outweighs paperwork. Silence during the early hours deepened the damage. With no immediate statement, speculation filled the space left behind. Reputations can fracture overnight that way. Beneath the noise, a more enduring reality emerged. How fragile freedom remains for artists returning from federal custody. Pooh Shiesty's situation underscored how narrow the margin is, even after release. Sources familiar with re-entry programs note that supervised release is structured to monitor relentlessly, leaving little room for error. One missed check-in, one unauthorized visitor, one rumor reframed as a report, and everything can unravel. That reality made the raid narrative believable. The streets understand how quickly supervision violations become incarceration. When celebrity and constant observation are added, the pressure multiplies. Sources say Pooh Shiesty had been deliberately restrained since release, focused on music, compliance, and avoiding unnecessary exposure, aware that a single misstep could undo months of discipline. The rumor of a raid shocked fans precisely because it clashed with the image Pooh Shiesty had presented: quiet, controlled, calculated. The internet, however, is indifferent to restraint. It rewards spectacle. Blogs chased clicks. Captions implied discovery. Speculation was treated as confirmation. What never appeared were the documents that would have mattered: a police report, a court filing, a federal statement. None surfaced. Still, the narrative continued to circulate. This is the cost borne at the intersection of fame and a criminal record, where every rumor feels plausible, and every allegation lingers longer than the facts that could disprove it. Every rumor felt plausible. Every allegation lingered longer than the silence that contradicted it. The conversation shifted quickly, from asking whether Pooh Shiesty was back in jail to speculating about what had been found, despite the absence of any documentation. This is how public opinion assembles a verdict without evidence. Quietly, industry insiders were saying the same thing to one another. Nothing had changed. Nothing new had occurred. The system appeared confusing, but unchanged. Still, quiet facts do not travel the way loud assumptions do. The rumor had already fulfilled its purpose. It reminded everyone that no matter the scale of a comeback, the past does not loosen its grip.
With the exclusive.
Rhode Island says you're wanted. With it.
Mr. Williams, you were arrested for pursuant to an arrest.
The timing only deepened the impact. The moment collided directly with Pooh Shiesty's momentum. Pooh Shiesty's return to music was not accidental. Sources say Pooh Shiesty had been working deliberately long before release, recording in isolation, organizing visuals, and preparing a controlled re-entry. FDO was not simply a song. It functioned as a marker of survival, patience, and unresolved history. The response was immediate, the reception heavy, the streams arriving in rapid succession. For some, the rumor felt like interference. For others, it served as a reminder that freedom under supervision is never complete freedom. Even without an arrest, the narrative alone can slow progress. Brands hesitate, promoters pause, partnerships stall when uncertainty enters the frame. These are the quiet consequences of viral legal speculation. According to sources, there was no violation, no breach, and no disciplinary action taken against Pooh Shiesty during this period. The listing that ignited the confusion remained the same before and after the rumors spread. But online culture does not wait for confirmation. Once a rapper's name trends alongside words like raided or back in jail, the effect is immediate. The irony is difficult to ignore. The same platforms that amplified Pooh Shiesty's return only hours earlier became the channels that circulated false updates soon after. The spotlight is unforgiving that way. For artists with a history, success, and scrutiny arrive together. Each step forward feels vulnerable, as though one rumor away from collapse. By the time clarification reached larger hip-hop outlets, the story had already multiplied. Some accepted the correction, others did not. That is the reality now. Once a scandal narrative takes shape, it rarely disappears entirely. Pooh Shiesty remained under supervised release, still fulfilling the conditions of a federal sentence, still legally free, and still moving with caution. There was no raid. There was no arrest. There was no return to prison. There was only another moment where speed eclipsed accuracy. The episode became a quiet case study in how misinformation spreads through rap culture, especially when legal systems, bureaucratic language, and recognizable names intersect. Sources say the focus remained unchanged: compliance, restraint, and finishing supervision without incident so that the next phase can begin without conditions. The lesson settled heavily. Freedom is not measured only by walking outside. It is measured by enduring scrutiny, surviving rumor, and moving forward while narratives attempt to pull you backward. The episode confirmed a reality of this era. Perception can weigh as heavily as restraint itself. A single screenshot nearly erased months of discipline. A single misunderstanding threatened to rewrite the narrative. And yet, momentum continued. Music kept moving. Support remained present. The comeback did not stop. The moment did not end anything, but it revealed how fragile progress becomes when the internet decides the storyline. The only path forward was focus, moving deliberately, thinking carefully, allowing actions to outlast rumor. Pooh Shiesty had already learned that lesson before the speculation began. For Pooh Shiesty, freedom under federal supervision remained a continuous test. Every movement was documented, every address recorded, every interaction evaluated. Sources familiar with re-entry operations note that supervised release is designed to detect small errors before they grow into irreversible consequences. That pressure does not ease when attention fades. After release, priorities shifted from survival to discipline. Studio time was arranged around curfews. Travel remained limited and approved. Appearances were selective. The objective was narrow and exacting. Complete supervision without incident and offer no reason for intervention. That is why the rumor of a raid carried such weight. It directly contradicted the low-profile strategy unfolding behind the scenes. According to sources, no surprise visits occurred. No compliance issues were flagged. No violations were recorded during that period. Still, the damage caused by perception exposed a deeper truth. In hip-hop, reputation often moves faster than documentation. A single misread database entry became powerful enough to disrupt momentum. The situation underscored how vulnerable progress remains when past cases linger in public memory. For artists with federal history, success rarely arrives without surveillance. Even when nothing happens, something can appear to have happened. That is the cost of visibility intertwined with legal baggage. Pooh Shiesty's response remained controlled. There were no emotional reactions, no public confrontations, no reckless statements, only silence and structure. That restraint mattered. It signaled growth, patience, and an understanding that reacting to every rumor only amplifies it. Systems observe reactions as closely as actions. In this context, silence was not weakness. It was strategy. This chapter was not about spectacle. It was about restraint, and restraint is how freedom is ultimately secured. The industry response reflected that reality. According to sources connected to booking and distribution, no deals were withdrawn, no tours cancelled, and no contracts frozen during the rumor cycle. That continuity spoke quietly but clearly. When business proceeds uninterrupted, it often indicates that nothing official has shifted. Streaming numbers continued to rise. FDO maintained traction. Catalog plays increased. That consistency outweighed any viral headline. It revealed the divide between noise and verification. The streets reacted emotionally. The industry responded analytically. And in that separation, momentum was preserved. That distinction preserved momentum. Sources say the comeback plan remained intact. Music first, visibility second, compliance always. The rumor also widened a conversation rarely given patience: how artists return to public life after federal time. Many are never afforded a second chance. One error can erase years of effort. Watching a high-profile case endure a wave of misinformation underscored the importance of preparation. Legal counsel, management, and re-entry advisors worked in parallel, containing the moment through restraint rather than confrontation. There were no public disputes, no aggressive denials, only forward motion. That discipline altered perception for those paying attention. It suggested a maturity that had not always defined the earlier chapters. The streets recognize growth when it is earned. More critically, systems respond to silence and consistency. The absence of chaos became the clearest signal. While blogs chased engagement, progress accumulated quietly. That is how endurance is built. The episode did not derail the comeback. It clarified why moving deliberately matters more than moving loudly. In a culture conditioned to react, composure became the most visible strength. As attention shifted elsewhere, one truth settled into place: the rumor did not define the moment. The response did. Remaining compliant, focused, and productive transformed a potential setback into evidence of evolution. According to sources, the next phase centers on completion, finishing supervision without incident, expanding creative work within legal boundaries, and preparing for independence once restrictions lift. That finish line carries weight. When supervision ends, the story finally changes, from a narrative framed by incarceration to one defined simply by the work. Until then, every step remains measured. This episode also functioned as a caution to the culture. Screenshots are not sources. Databases are not headlines. Confusion can produce consequences even in the absence of wrongdoing. For those watching closely, the conclusion was unambiguous: discipline outlasts drama. Progress does not require constant defense when actions remain consistent. The comeback endured because structure held. No matter how loud speculation became, reality did not shift. That is the line between growth and regression. The spotlight will always search for fractures. This time, none appeared. That alone marked a turning point. The narrative moved forward, not through damage control, but because there was nothing to correct. Neither the system nor the rumor dictated the outcome. Focus did. And that focus continues to clear a path toward a return without conditions, without supervision, and without distortion.